Hello, and welcome to GAAPP Academy, Building Effective Coalitions. I'm Tanya Winders, the president of Global Allergy and Airways Patient Platform, the host of today's webinar. This webinar could not be made possible without the generous support of our sponsors, AstraZeneca, Sanofi Genzyme, Regeneron, and Novartis. Thank you for your continued support of GAAPP and our member organizations in building greater capacity to advocate on behalf of the hundreds of millions of patients we serve. So let's get started today. In discussing building effective coalitions, we will cover 6 different topics and leave time for Q&A. First, what is a coalition? What is the power of a coalition? And how do coalitions function? Next, who should you recruit for coalitions? And how can you work most effectively in a coalition? Finally, we'll wrap up our time with successful examples of coalitions and resources to help you build coalitions and participate in coalitions more effectively. Coalition building is an art, but what is a coalition? According to its definition, a coalition is an organization of diverse interest groups that join their human and material resources to produce a specific change that they simply could not deliver independently. When doing the work of patient advocacy across the globe, it's very evident that we must work in coalition. There's no way that any one of us can achieve the goals and ambitions of changing healthcare for hundreds of millions, if not billions, across the world. A coalition works by working hard, making tough decisions, and building that consensus and coalition all along the way. The truth is, you can't do anything alone. And so it does take all of us working together. And that's the importance of coalitions and why coalition building should be an important element of the work that you do. The power of a coalition. It was once said that none of us is as smart as all of us. And when working a coalition, you quickly recognize that there are strengths in different perspectives, in different walks of life, and certainly different strengths, skills, and abilities that can be brought to an effort to effect change. These are some of the things that a coalition can do, especially a coalition of patient advocates like you and me. So number one, it can strengthen your core program base power by enhancing your potential to gain attention by policymakers and also affect change in policy. Coalitions can provide talents, skills, and resources that can be shared to achieve those common goals. Coalitions can propel a strategic and concerted resolution to a certain problem. So oftentimes coalitions are formed on the basis of recognizing a problem, identifying that, and determining what are the potential solutions that we could work towards to address that problem. A coalition can and should allow its members to own and commit to those shared goals. For without that ownership, without that commitment, then likely the coalition will not work as effectively as it should. A coalition should ensure that approaches are appropriate and culturally sensitive for all targeted audiences. This is one of the key aspects that a coalition can help provide insight rather than a single organization going it alone. Coalitions can provide a forum for open discussion and mutual support, and oftentimes broaden that base of support and establish and maintain trust, which is fundamental to any relationship, but especially when you're talking about working in coalition toward policy change. Coalitions can also reduce a chance of duplication of efforts, competition for resources, and enhance communication within a specific community. So if we're all working towards the same goal and having that frequent communication, then in fact, the duplication of efforts will be reduced, and that competitive nature that sometimes happens within advocacy communities should also be reduced. The bottom line is coalitions often is exactly what it takes to advocate for policy change that support overall health in patients. Now, what about the functions of a coalition? I often like to say start with the end in mind. What is that aim? What is that goal that you're trying to achieve by building a coalition or participating in a coalition? Because time is the one resource that we can't manufacture, that we can't get more of. And so, how we spend our time should be wisely, and it should be aimed at towards a specific end or goal in mind. So, starting out by asking, what do we want to achieve? What is the purpose of convening? And what is that desired end state that we hope to achieve? We also have to start very soon in identifying those key participants that can help us to achieve that goal. And then, after identifying those key stakeholders and who we can invite to the table, determining what is the best approach to actually engage them and gain their commitment to the policy change effort. Once we convene, it's all about telling the story, introducing the problem, offering solutions, and then gaining that buy-in from each member of the coalition to communicate, coordinate, collaborate, and definitely commit to that end in mind. And so it takes those 4 C's on an ongoing basis when working in coalition to truly be successful. So when determining who to recruit, how do we go about this? This quote says, decisions determine destiny. Choose wisely. And it is very important that when you're choosing the members to recruit to a coalition, that you step back and really ensure the right people are around the table and committed to the collaboration or coordination of efforts. I once heard that a bad team member is one of the most dangerous things you can have. And this is never more true than in the time of building and executing a coalition. We have to share that common goal or objective, or else there really is no foundation for moving forward. Each team member must have their own level of credibility within the community. And if there is a member that doesn't hold that credibility, it actually can do damage or harm to the entire collective group. So it's very important in choosing wisely and making sure that that credibility is existing up front. And then next, team members have to have strong links with the community and with decision makers. And so think intentionally and purposefully about why you're bringing a specific partner to the table, why that team member is important to be a part of the coalition, and what piece of the work can they contribute to. And then keep the size of the coalition more manageable. Sometimes we've been in coalitions where it's, 30, 40, 50 patient advocacy groups working together for a broad healthcare change. That gets pretty unwieldy. And so I often try to think about, can we keep the coalitions or the efforts to smaller size, to smaller groups, or have subsets of a larger group that take on specific tasks. Now, who to recruit, who to invite around the table really depends on the end in mind that you have. So if you're trying to drive awareness or educate healthcare professionals, you would have different stakeholders than if you're trying to impact public policy or government officials. So some of the examples that are offered here are other nonprofit organizations, healthcare providers, professional societies, industry partners, perhaps traditional industry partners or external industry partners. And then elected officials. Sometimes it makes sense to actually get a champion in that elected official realm to carry your effort forward and to lead the coalition efforts or to support the coalition efforts towards that policy change. Government agencies. We have had coalitions that have actually engaged the Food and Drug Administration here in the US. We just wrapped up a coalition effort on the Food Allergy Collaborative to co-host a patient-focused drug development meeting with the FDA. So who are those government agencies who may help you to achieve your goal? And then community-based organizations and religious organizations. Again, an example that we have here at Allergy and Asthma Network is where we've partnered in underserved communities with churches and with community-based organizations to host free asthma and COPD screening events and to provide that free education, to answer any questions around COVID. And this has been a very effective way to engage those high-risk communities because these are trusted messengers that already exist in those neighborhoods. So definitely community organizations and religious organizations should be members of coalitions that you're looking at making that social change, especially in those high-risk communities. And then state agencies. Here in the US, again, we have an opportunity to work with the state agencies, the Departments of Public Health, and their asthma programs to ensure that their materials are easy to understand or patient friendly, that they are guidelines based, and that they are easily accessible to patients and families at those state departments of public health. Now, in coalition building and work, it's important to think about how do we do this effectively. And as we said in our previous capacity building webinars, keeping it as simple as possible. The KISS principle, keep it simple, silly, or stupid, depending on which one you prefer, applies here to coalition building as well. So first, let's talk about a simple structure and the importance of structure. Is this coalition going to be democratic in nature, or is it going to have a small executive committee that makes decisions on behalf of the coalition when we talk about overall objectives and strategies? What's going to be the routine meeting schedule or cadence of those meetings? What are the defined roles and responsibilities of each member of the coalition? It's often wise to have memos of understanding in place to really help clearly define and ensure that everyone is aligned on the mission, goals, objectives, and individual roles and responsibilities. That's a document also that oftentimes addresses how conflicts will be resolved, because where there are people, there will likely be conflict. So there needs to be at the forefront a mechanism and a plan for how to handle conflict and to resolve the conflict within the structure of the coalition. And then communication. We've already said it. You're going to hear me say it again. You can never communicate too often in the building and effective working of a coalition. It is vital to the life of any coalition, of any project and work. And certainly in this discussion around how to make a coalition work most effectively, communication is key. Now, another key to working effectively is never assume alignment. It is, oftentimes we get busy with our work and it's so easy to assume that everyone's on the same page. But there's an old saying about assuming, and it often makes an ASS out of both you and me. So it's important to stop and to ensure that members understand the aim, the end in mind, the ultimate goal that you're working towards, but also to not assume those roles and timelines, to explicitly state them in each of your meetings. So who is doing what, and in what timeline. It's also important to appoint strong leaders. You need someone who's going to lead the coalition and lead it well. And so appointing those strong leaders and equipping them, enabling them to do the task and the job that they've been called to do is vitally important as well. But no matter if you're a leader in a coalition or not, we all want that level of respect and dignity. We want to know that our opinion matters, that our contribution is valued, and that is at the forefront of work in a coalition. Every single person should feel that respect and dignity in the interactions. In leading a coalition, it's important to invite the members to take on tasks, to not feel like you have to do everything yourself, but to encourage others to step up and to delegate appropriately certain tasks and activities in order to achieve the overall goal of the coalition. We have to work on identifying common ground and recognizing that we may simply not always agree. And that's okay. Just because we're working in coalition toward this one policy change or this one awareness effort, it doesn't necessarily mean that everyone has to be 100% on the same page at all times. But what we do have to understand is that when push comes to shove, we must set aside our individual agendas or consideration of individual benefit and work toward the necessity of the collective good and the overall aim or population that we're serving with the coalition. And so this is the key in my book of successful coalitions, is that you realize you're coming to the table and putting your own personal pride or agenda aside for the collective work of that coalition. It's also important to respect people's time and to keep meetings short and goal-oriented. I often say, especially in this day and time, a meeting really should be kept to 20 to 30 minutes optimally, because we're all busy. We all have a lot of demands on our time. So keeping things short and goal-oriented. And then reporting out milestones and next actions. So each meeting, there should be some follow-up communication to what the next action items may be and when we're achieving specific milestones along the way of the project plan. Clear decision-making process and conflict resolution process. So again, how are decisions going to be made? How are conflicts going to be resolved? This should be established very early in the building of a coalition. As the leader, as members of a coalition, praise, 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 especially diversity, ongoing efforts, commitment to time and cooperation. All of these are really important opportunities to reinforce why we joined the coalition, what we're aiming to do, and certainly to keep people enthused and engaged in the work. And then again, communicate, communicate, communicate all along the way. Every chance that you get, give an update, provide encouragement, find ways to creatively communicate the effort and the outcomes of the activity toward that aim in mind. And then finally, celebrate success. When you achieve that aim in mind, when you achieve the goal of the coalition, make sure that there is that recognition and celebration and collective opportunity to recognize the work that was done and completed and discuss what next. So here are a few examples of successful coalitions. One that many of you will be familiar with is EFA, the European Federation of Airway Disease, Allergy and Airway Disease. And so this is a group of 42 organizations that work together in Europe to advance atopic and airway diseases. And again, a very effective coalition that focuses on awareness and education and policy change at that EU level. Next, there's an OCS stewardship ongoing coalition and effort. In the US, we call it OCS Overexposed, and in the global side, it is called Focus. And the aim on both of these is to reduce the inappropriate use of oral corticosteroids in respiratory. And so we have professional societies, patient organizations, industry representatives. It's a very diverse stakeholder group that's advancing steroid stewardship in respiratory disease. The next example is Precision. Precision is an industry-led effort by AstraZeneca that brings together key experts in the healthcare provider community, the patient community, and in the industry space to really look at how do we change severe asthma care throughout the world. Is that through quality standards? Is that through a patient charter? Is it through work to change policy and funding prioritization of severe asthma at national levels? So Precision is a project that has developed a number of tools, written dozens of publications and peer-reviewed articles, and is advancing that notion that not all asthma is just asthma, and that in fact severe asthma should be fully recognized and managed and prioritized differently given the burden on our community. And then actually GAAPP, the Global Allergy and Airways Patient Platform, is a coalition. We are an umbrella organization that supports a coalition of 67 patient advocacy groups from all across the world. And you can see that here in this map. And at GAAPP, our aim in mind is to create a world without atopic and airways diseases. And so that's why we work together to drive awareness of these conditions, to educate both the general public, patients, caregivers, healthcare providers, and policymakers on these conditions. And it's also the reason why we work so diligently at the global level and in supporting you at the in-country level toward effective policy change. So these are several examples just in our therapeutic areas of effective coalitions and the work that they're currently doing. Now, what about additional resources to help? The truth is, there are many different tools out there to build effective coalitions and to do this well. And so we don't have to recreate the wheel. And I'll share on this slide some different websites that you can visit post the webinar to actually watch effective coalitions or presentations on building those effective coalitions. One is on how coalitions can change the world, and it's very focused on global policy. Yet another is creating and building coalitions in an age of separation. At no time in history have we been a more divided and oftentimes polarized world of viewpoints and opinions. And so this TED Talk is really powerful in how to take people and divergent thoughts and move it forward to building coalitions, even in an age where there seems to be great divisiveness. The final three things here are websites that actually have toolkits on how to build effective coalitions and maintain effective coalitions. There are resources and tools that you can use in your coalition efforts, and definitely a very powerful example in the last website here of the path to power, the path for community change in underserved communities. So how specifically a group of individuals have galvanized a community to build a coalition and to effect change for those most underserved communities and most marginalized individuals. So I hope that you found this content to be helpful and engaging and informative regarding how to build and manage effective coalitions. Again, I want to thank our sponsors, AstraZeneca, Novartis, and Sanofi Regeneron, for their continued support of the Global Allergy and Airways Patient Platform and of these capacity building webinars. We'll now open the floor for Q&A.